Hi, my name is Josh, and I am the designer of Spheres of Influence Struggle for Global Supremacy. Now, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the rules here. Now, you've got the rule book, and that's fine. It's very systematic. There's a lot of examples, but I'm going to teach you this game the way that I teach new people who are just sitting down for the first time. So first, let's begin with the setup. There's a couple of things you're going to want to do right off the bat. First thing I do is, I've got the special cards, and we'll go over this later, but what you're going to want to do is take these cards, shuffle them together. I've already done a shuffle, so this is a quick and dirty. Next, set up the board. Next, you're going to want to set up the progress chart beside the board, and you're going to want to put this nearest the player who is going to manage this. You're going to want one person to be the guy who is going to manage this sideboard. This is going to keep track of every single faction's progress as they take and lose territory. So it's a big job, so the right type of person should be doing that, okay? Now, once you do that, you need to determine the number of players who are going to be playing the game. And the reason is the game's number of rounds and the number of factions each player is controlled is determined by the number of players who are playing. So if you've got a lot of players playing, each one is going to control fewer factions. If there's a couple players playing, each one is going to control multiple factions. If you look over here, in a two-player game, each player will be controlling 3 or 4 factions. In a 3 and a 4-player game, each player is controlling 2 factions, and in a 5 or more player game, each player is controlling only 1 faction. In this case, I want to imagine that it's just me and one other person who is playing. So we have the choice, either 3 or 4 factions. Well, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to choose 3 factions. I could just as easily choose 4, but I'm going to choose 3 factions. Now, the next thing that we have to do is choose our factions. Now, in this game, each faction is made up of its own set of turn cards. And you'll see that there are 2 base turn cards and cards that have +1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the corner. We'll get to the significance of that later. And then its own group of cubes, its own acrylic cubes here. So each player is going to choose which factions they want. Now, all the factions are the same. There is no difference between black or green and purple. They're all the same. So in this case, I've decided that player 1 is going to be red, blue, and white, and player 2 is going to be green, black, and yellow. And when I made that decision, I went ahead and I put these cards in front of each player, and I took their cubes and I set them near their cards. This is just to keep things organized. Now, once we've established the number of players and the number of factions, we've got to set the number of rounds that the game is going to be played to. Up here, there is an area that we're going to place an 8-sided dice, and we're going to use this to keep track of what round we're on. Now, in a game that has 5 to 7 factions, there are going to be 6 rounds. In a game that has 8 or more factions, there will be 5 rounds. This game has 6 factions, so it falls within that range. It is going to have 6 rounds. And what we're going to do is, as rounds elapse, as rounds are made complete, this countdown timer will go down. And eventually, we'll get to round 1, and we can't move it any further. The game is over. We determine a winner. All right? Now, I want to begin to talk about start location cards. These are start location cards. They have a couple of purposes, but their main purpose is to determine where every faction is going to begin. Unlike other war games like Risk or Axis and Ally, where the whole board is populated at the beginning of the game, in this game, each faction is only going to begin with a single territory under its control. Like green might be there, black might be here. The question is, how do we determine where the factions begin? Well, we're going to use a start location deck. So this deck is composed of a whole bunch of start location cards. Each of these cards corresponds to a sphere of influence on the map. So for instance, this is the South American sphere of influence. There's a card that corresponds to this one. There's another card that corresponds to the South African sphere of influence. Here's one that corresponds to the Australian sphere of influence, and so on. Now, what's going to happen is players are going to be dealt 2 cards at a time. So, for instance, player 1, this deck is shuffled. He is secretly dealt 2 cards, and meanwhile, player 2 is secretly dealt 2 cards. Now, player 1 is going to look at his cards. He has no idea what player 2 has. He only knows his 2 cards. he's going to choose one of these cards, however he sees fit, for whatever reason, right? Maybe he says, you know, I want to be Western Europe, I want this card, okay? He gets rid of the other card and he keeps this card. Meanwhile, player 2 is going to make a decision. I'm not even going to look at what player 2 is. I'm going to assume that player 2 is going to take this card, whatever this is, okay? Then this process continues until every single player has a number of selected start location cards equal to the number of factions he controls, which means we're going to have to do this again. So, player 1 is dealt 2 cards again. He's going to say, I'm going to do Australia. Player 2, I'm not even going to see what he's going to get. I'm just going to randomly choose this. Back to player 1. Player 1 says, ooh, I got these choices. Now, all player 1 knows is what he has, and maybe he says, to balance out my team, I will take the Middle East, and I'll get rid of this choice. Meanwhile, player 2, he has some decisions to make, and again, he's just going to randomly choose. Okay, now once every single player has received a number of start location cards equal to the number of factions that they have, this process is done. We get rid of all of the excess start location cards which weren't chosen. We set them aside. Those won't be used for the rest of the game. And then each player reveals their choices. And in revealing their choices, they arbitrarily assign one faction to one start location card. So maybe green says, I'll take that one, black that one, and yellow this one. And same thing here. Red says this, this, and that. What they're going to do next is they're going to take 3 units and they're going to place it on the start location card that they were assigned. So red, owned by player 1, is going to put 3 units into the Middle Eastern sphere of influence on this capital city that corresponds to this space right here. So you'll see corresponds to the same capital city. All right, blue got Canberra. He's going to put 3 units here. White got Western Europe. He got Berlin, 3 units there. Meanwhile, the other player is doing the same thing. Green will place 3 units here, black will place 3 units in India, yellow will place 3 units in Brazil. Okay, that is how start location cards work. Now they're going to hold on to these start locations. They have a secondary function, but we'll get to that later. All right, the moment that each faction's units are on the board, we need to begin to track their progress. And so let's go ahead and look at the progress tracker really quick. So this chart tracks each faction's progress in 3 distinct areas. The top section tracks their regional production, the middle section tracks the number of spheres and capital cities they control, and the bottom section tracks how much oil production they have. Let's take a look at yellow for a moment. Yellow right now has 1 territory under its control. It has a territory worth 4 regional production, and it has an oil field. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a cube here and put a tracker token there for yellow. That's worth 4. That's how much regional production he has. Meanwhile, I'm going to take another cube. I'm going to put it in the oil section. Now, he has 1 oil field, so I'm going to put this there. Let's take a look at green. Green has a territory worth 2 regional production. He has no oil, and so I will take a token and put it 2 for his regional production. I will put this here for oil because he doesn't have any oil. And I will do that for every single one of the factions. Now, in this game, nobody is going to begin with any spheres or capital cities under their control. Yes, it's true they have capitals, but we don't track their progress until they actually control a completed sphere. So we'll get back to this later. And we'll also get back to the significance of this, but I just want to indicate that we need to begin to track it from the get-go. All right, so let me go ahead and just talk about the round structure for a moment. Every single round of this game is broken into 2 different phases. We have the mobilization phase and the turn phase. Now, every round begins with the mobilization phase. And we're going to do 2 things here. We're going to form the global turn deck, and then we're going to take turns placing new units. Now, the first round is a little bit different than the other rounds, so we're going to ignore placing new units. Every single faction already has all their units they're going to get from this round. So what we're going to do is we're just going to form the global turn deck. Now, for the very first round of the game, every single faction is going to contribute its 2 base turn cards to form the game's global turn deck. Now, these cards are all going into the exact same deck. Okay. Now, in future rounds, factions are going to be able to contribute more turn cards, but for the very first round, it's only their 2 base turn cards, regardless of any other circumstances. So you're going to take these cards, and you're going to shuffle them together. Okay. And once these cards have been shuffled, you will place them face down on the table. Now we're ready to begin the first round's turn phase. Okay, so once the global turn deck has been formed, these cards have been shuffled and placed face down, then we are going to reveal one at a time the top card of this deck. When a faction's card is revealed, that faction gets to take a turn. And we also return this card to whatever player. So in this case, yellow's card is returned to him. Now, when a faction's card is revealed, that faction gets to take a turn, and on their turn, they get to perform one action. And we have some choices for actions over here. You can either pass, move, attack, or annex. Now, for the first couple of rounds of the game, you're typically just going to be performing moves, or maybe even passing. It's going to take a while to attack, but let me just kind of show you how movement works and what that looks like. Okay, so maybe yellow decides, I'm going to go ahead and move. How he does that is he chooses a space he controls, and he moves eligible units on that space to an adjacent space. Now, really quickly, I'll pause for a moment. There's a couple of things that make spaces adjacent. If a territory shares a border with another territory, those spaces are adjacent. So like these spaces are adjacent, those are adjacent, that's adjacent, that's adjacent. If a territory is connected to another territory by an orange dash line, those spaces are adjacent. There's a couple of these on the map. These represent canals or navigable water. A territory connected to a sea zone, and a sea zone is simply a water space, by a blue dashed line is adjacent. So for instance, these two spaces are adjacent, or this and that space are adjacent. Two sea zones connected to each other by a white dashed line, that makes those spaces adjacent. So that space is adjacent to this space. Also, on the extreme ends of the board, we have a sea zone labeled A, and we have two connectors, one labeled B and one labeled C, that connect to spaces on the other side of the board. You'll see there's a C connector over here, a B connector here, and a C zone also labeled A. And what this allows for is travel around the map. So this space and this space are in fact the same space. And just for the sake of showing you, if green's units were here, his units would simultaneously be here. As a matter of fact, he could choose to represent them on either side of the map that he so wishes. Meanwhile, units who were on B could, on this space, travel to that space. And the same thing for C. They could go from that space to that space. Okay? So, now that we've established how adjacency works and what makes those connections happen, let's have yellow, on his turn, make a move. So yellow decides on his turn he wants to move from one space to an adjacent space. Now, if he's on a territory, he has to leave a unit behind. You can never willfully abandon a territory. So yellow decides, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move 2 units into this space. He could have moved 1. He could have moved none there and instead moved to this space. But he decided, I want to move 2 units to this space. He can move as many as he wants, but again, he's got to leave 1 unit behind. Now, this space is worth 1 regional production. The moment you take over any spaces in this game, or any territories, you have to adjust the progress chart according to how much regional production and how much oil and some other factors were there. And so in this case, he had 4 regional production previously. That territory was worth 1. He now has 5. That's his turn. Turns are very quick. Let's see what the next turn is. Green. We return green's card to him, and green takes a turn. Green decides, you know what? I'm going to move 2 units on this space to here. This space is worth 2 regional production, so we move him 2 on the regional production part of the chart. And that territory was also worth 1 oil, so we're going to move him up in oil. Now, I'll get to the significance of this in a bit. I'm just trying to show you how these turns work. So, yellow's turn came up again. And this is kind of part of the game. There's a dynamic turn structure here. There's no set order. We don't know when yellow's turn is going to be in relation to red's or black's. In this case, he had 2 turns fairly early on. We return his card to him. Yellow again takes a turn. Maybe yellow decides, I'm going to move a unit into the C. All right, let's see what the next card is. Red. Red decides, I'm going to move 1 unit onto this space. Okay? This space is worth 1 regional production and 1 oil. Now, I'm kind of beating a dead horse here. You get the idea that we're going to keep on revealing cards, and factions are going to incrementally take territories or move into sea zones, adjust their position on the progress chart, and this is going to continue. And we're going to keep on going until every single card in the global turn deck has been revealed and returned to its owners. Now, once that happens, a round ends. And what we're going to do is this. This game, again, had 6 rounds because of the number of factions who were playing. Well, we just finished reviewing the top card of the global turn deck. So a round ends, we adjust this down, and a new round is about to begin. And now we're going to go into that round's mobilization phase. Okay, so now we're going to go into the next round of the game. Now, in order to demonstrate some ideas and to teach you some stuff, I've kind of cheated a little bit, and I've expanded some of these empires in ways that isn't necessarily realistic, but this is just to drive home a couple of points. So when a round begins, we begin each round with the mobilization phase. So we've got to do 2 things. We have to form the global turn deck again. We'll do that first. Okay, so just like the first round, every faction is again going to contribute its 2 base turn cards. Okay, so each of them is contributing its 2 base turn cards. However, from this round forward, something different is going to happen. Based on how many oil fields a faction controls, they are going to contribute some of their bonus turn cards. So let's take a look at red. Red has 2 oil fields under its control. We can take a look at the map really fast too. There's an oil field here and an oil field there. He's got 2 oil fields, and that's what that number is coming from. So he's going to contribute his +1 and his +2 bonus turn cards to the global turn deck. Now, blue has 1 oil field under his control. White doesn't have any, so he's just going to stick with his 2 base turn cards. Green has a 1 and a 2 to contribute. Black has a 1, and yellow has a 1 and a 2. So the idea is the more oil you control, the more turns you're going to get to take each round. So this deck is going to get shuffled just like last time. I'm going to shuffle this deck, and we'll place it face down on the table. Now, I haven't done a great job of shuffling this. This is just to drive home an idea. Next, unlike the first round, we're actually going to take turns placing new units. So the factions are going to place units. Now, how is that going to work? Who's taking turns? Well, let's go ahead and show you. So first, let me show you this part of the chart. The turn order for faction unit placement is this. The farther you are along in the regional production section of the chart, the earlier you're going to place. So in this case, black is by far the farthest along. He is going to get to place a number of units equal to what his regional production total yields. His regional production is 13. That's going to yield him 5 units. Okay, so let's go to black really fast. Black gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You also get 1 unit for every original capital city you control. He has 1 right now. Over the course of this game, it is conceivable that he might conquer another faction's original capital. If he did, he would take that faction's card. Let's imagine for a moment that he somehow took Canberra from blue. Well, he would add this to his collection, and if he did have that, he would get another unit. Now, in this case, he doesn't. He's just getting the 1 for his only original capital. So at this point, he's getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you also get 1 unit for every sphere of influence you control. Now, again, this was a section of the chart I said you only begin to track it once you control a sphere of influence. I cheated a little bit, if you look over here, and I allowed black to conquer more spaces than he could. Now, in this case, black controls the entire brown sphere of influence here, the greater India sphere of influence. If over a series of turns, black ended up taking control of this, we would adjust his position on the chart. That would be another sphere of influence and also contained a capital city. Just to show you one more idea really quick, suppose that black took over this, but he didn't have the rest of the sphere. Well, he would have 2 spheres of influence under his control and 3 capitals. If he lost those territories that contain capitals, or if he lost those spheres, maybe a faction attacked him and he lost control of this, I would just bump him down accordingly. Okay, that's what that section of the chart is for. Now let's undo this. Okay, so black is going to place first. So black is getting, excuse me, I'm kind of breaking this up a little bit. Black is going to get 7 units. He's getting 5 from his regional production, he's getting 1 from his original capital city, and he's getting 1 for his sphere of influence he controls. Now he places these units however he wishes amongst territories that he presently controls. He can't place them on sea zones, the water spaces, simply on territories. And he does this however he wants. So maybe he says, well, red is an enemy of mine. I'll put a couple of units there to get that. Maybe I'll put some enemies here so I can expand northward. And I'll put 1 guy here for good measure. Now, once he's done, the next faction, who is the next farthest along in the chart, places. In this case, it's going to be white. For this much regional production, for 9 regional production, white gets 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. He gets 1 for his original capital city, so it's going to be 5. And maybe he'll place his units here, and 1 unit there. Okay, now we're going to see there's a tie here. Yellow and green are both tied for their regional production. So who places first? What's going to happen here? Well, here's what happens. Their tie is broken by who's ever between the two of them farthest along in the next section of the chart. So in this case, yellow has a sphere of influence, green doesn't have any. Yellow is farthest along. In the weird scenario where, let's imagine that green had a sphere of influence and they were tied here, it would go to who's ever farthest along in the next section. In this case, they're actually tied there too. Supposing that they were tied in all 3 sections, those 2 factions would simply roll a dice between the 2. And the one who had the higher value would place first. That didn't happen here. Again, their tie was broken by the merit that yellow was farthest along in this section, so yellow is going to be next. He's going to get 3, 4, plus 1 for his original capital, so he's going to get 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he's going to place, again, he's going to place his units on territories he controls. He controls this sea zone, but he can't place guys there. Okay, and this is going to continue. Green's going to place his units, and that would be 3, 4. He'll place his units however he sees fit. Red's going to place his units. He's going to get 4. And blue is finally going to place his units, and he's very weak. He only gets 3. However, you can see that there's an idea in play that despite the fact that factions are weaker than other factions, they get a certain luxury. They get to see what their opponents have done before themselves, allowing them to kind of react. Now, once we've done all of that, this mobilization phase is complete, and then we move into that round's turn phase, again, using this round's newly formed turn deck. So let's take a look at this, and now we're going to explore some more of the other actions. Again, so far I've only kind of covered moving, but we'll cover all the actions this round. Okay, so now we're going to do this round's turn phase. If you recall, we're going to reveal the top card of the global turn deck. That faction will take a turn performing 1 action, and then we're going to repeat that process until every single card in the turn deck has been flipped. Okay, so green. Green's card's flipped. He gets to do something. This card is returned to him. Maybe on green's turn he says, you know what, I want to pass. Again, that's one of the actions that you can do. We didn't do that one yet. You can pass, move, attack, and annex. Green just says, I'm going to pass. He doesn't do anything. Okay? Blue's turn. Blue says, I'm going to go ahead and make a move. Now, we've talked about moving into empty spaces, and we've shown you a fair amount of that, but another thing that you can do is you can move a unit from one space into a space that you already have units in. So blue could, granted, of course, blue could do this, but blue could also do that move if he wanted. Got a lot of options there. So maybe he says, I want to go ahead and just bring this unit into that fleet. Now, another thing that you can do, which is interesting, if your unit who moved began their turn in the sea and they moved to another sea zone, the units who are on that sea zone can perform yet another action so long as their move also resolves in a sea zone. And what that means is this. Now, with all the units on this space, another action could be performed by blue so long as it also resolves on a sea zone. So he could do those moves, for instance, or even this move, but he could not do that move. Again, just to reiterate, let's say that blue didn't do this. Blue decided, I'm going to begin by moving these units. They began their turn in a sea zone. They moved to a C zone, and now if he wanted to, he could perform a bonus action with them so long, again, as it resolves in a C zone. And so moving in the C is a really great way to get really far across the board, much faster than you could by land. But there are some restrictions on it. Okay, but let's say that blue decides, I want to move a unit here, and then I want to move the fleet here. Maybe blue is gearing up to attack black. All right, well, let's see whose card is next. Okay, black's card was revealed. Black's going to get to take a turn. Black says, I want to intercept this fleet. So black will move into the C. All right, let's see what the next card is. Black's turn again. Black says, I'm going to attack with my units on this space against the units in this space. These spaces are adjacent, and attacking is a lot like performing a move in the sense that if this was from a territory, a unit would have to be left behind. You couldn't participate in the battle. He's holding it. If it's in a C zone, everybody can abandon it and leave it. And so in this case, black is able, if he wants, to have all of his units on this space try to attack blue here. All right, so here is how attacking works. Attacking as an action is made up of potentially multiple combat rounds, but all of those rounds are all part of the same attack action. So for instance, I might attack an opponent of mine, and it lasts 5 rounds of combat, but all of those rounds of combat are all part of the same attack action. My attack continues until I can no longer attack, I've conquered the space, or I don't have enough units to continue attacking. When you declare an attack, you are able to use 1 to 5 eligible units on the space you were attacking from. Now in this case, black only has 3 units here, and they're all eligible. What makes a unit eligible is if the space is a territory, 1 unit has to stay behind and hold it, so he's always uneligible. All the other units are eligible. On a C zone, since it can be abandoned, every single unit is conceivably eligible. So in this case, black could attack with 2 units, he could attack with 3, he could attack with just 1 if he wanted to. He's going to decide to attack with 3. Now, the defender has to defend with the maximum number of units that he can, up to 5, and all of his units are eligible. Even if he's on a territory, he's fighting to the last man. In this case, he's got 4 units here. He could go up to 5, but he's only got 4, so he has to fight with 4. And even if he wanted to use less, he doesn't have the choice. He's got to fight with 4. And what's going to happen is for every single unit on each side who is fighting, for every unit, each one of them is going to roll a 1d6. So we're going to use these red dice for the attacker. We're going to use these white dice for the defender. He's having 3 units fight, so he's going to roll 3d6. Meanwhile, the defender is going to roll 4. And what the goal is to try to organize your dice into as many groups whose value is 6 or more as you can. And for each group that you can organize, that is a kill. Now, a group can be a single dice, it could be 2 dice, 3 dice, it could be all of your dice combined into a single group. I should note that there's no leftovers, there's no carryovers, there's no remainders here. So let me show you our results. And this is kind of an unusual round, but of course it figures. So we've got 1 kill and 2 kill, because black is able to form these into groups. This is 1 group, 2 groups. And meanwhile, the defender is only able to form 1. The rest of these dice, even altogether, only equaled 5. So the kills are scored simultaneously here. In this case, black got 2 kills. He's going to remove 2 blue units. Blue only got 1 kill against black, and that's that. Now, black has the option. He can continue to fight. And again, he uses eligible units on the space he's attacking from. This is all part of the same action. And he decides, I'm going to use the 2 units who are there. Again, blue defends with as many as he can, up to 5. So we're going to do this again. Black's got 2 dice. Blue's got 2. All right, he rolled that, and white rolled this. Black, organizing his dice, is able to make 1 group. Blue, organizing his dice, is able to make 1 group. Actually, they both got the same roll, so they both lose 1. Now, maybe black decides, man, I don't want to continue this battle. It really isn't going as well as I'd hope. I'm just going to stop. But if he wanted to, he could continue. He can continue until that unit was dead, but he's going to stop right here. All right, so I want to go ahead and show you just another regular battle before we begin to introduce special dice or anything like that. So, card is flipped. Black's turn comes up. Black says, I want to go ahead and have the units on this space and attack an adjacent space. I want them to attack that space. Now, Black has 7 units here. He's only able to fight with 5 eligible units at a time. Now, because this is a C-zone, all the units there are eligible. Nobody is staying back to maintain control. But he can only go with 5. So even if he has 20, he can only use 5. The defender, again, is defending with as many as he can up to 5. He has 5 units. He's going to use 5 as well. So they're both going to roll simultaneously. We're going to use this for defense, this for attack. And we're going to make as many groups as we can. So this is one group. A 6 is always considered a group. We can make this a group, and we can make that a group. Now again, there's no leftovers. I'm not thinking about, well, 5 plus 5 is 10, and there's a 4. No, it's just as many groups as I can make. So that's 1 group, 2 group, 3 group. That's 3 kills. Blue is going to lose 3 units. Meanwhile, Blue scored 1 group, 2 group. Now, I could organize this dice a couple different ways. I could have done this or that. Doesn't matter. The most he can make was 2 groups, so Blue scores 2 kills on Black. Now, again, it's Black's decision if he wants to continue as long as he has guys there. Black says, you know what, I want to go ahead and finish this fleet off. So Black is able to attack with up to 5. Now, Blue is down to just 2. So Black is going to roll 5 dice, great roll. Blue roll 2. Blue is only able to get 1 kill. This doesn't count for anything. Black is able to get 1, 2, 3 kills. Again, he could have done it that way or he could have done it this way. It doesn't matter. He's able to get 3 kills. So he kills all the guys there. Meanwhile, Blue killed 1 of his. And after the battle is over, we didn't address this earlier, but supposing that you actually defeat all the defending units. So how many guys do you have to move there? Do you have to move everybody? Well, how many do you move? Well, you have to minimally move the survivors of the final round of combat into that space. So it's all the units who participated in that round who survive. Now, in this case, all these guys participated in that round of combat, so they have to move. But let's imagine for a moment that there was quite a bit more here. Well, if there was, 5 units participated in that final round, 1 of them died, so only 4 would have to go. Of course, Black could send more, and he can choose how many more he wants to send. He could just do 2 more if he wanted, or he could do all of them. But nonetheless, he gets a decision, but it's minimally the survivors. Okay, now I want to begin to show you combat with special dice, and this is going to be one of the main factors of the game. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so I want to go ahead and bring your attention to this little chart over here. Now, so far, we've been doing battles from a C-zone to a C-zone, and this hasn't had the defender get any special dice. But you'll see that in most situations, the defender gets at least 1 special dice, and sometimes 2, and this is going to be per round of combat. So let's go over that. Here, Black is going to attack, well, actually, let's do this in order. Black turn card came up. Black takes a turn. Black says, I want my units on this space to attack this one. Now, again, this is a territory. He's got to leave 1 unit behind, so this unit is ineligible. The other 4, they can go forward and they can attack. So he's going to get to roll 4 dice. Meanwhile, the defender is going to get to roll 3 dice. He's got 3 guys there, and every single one fights to the death. However, if you look at this chart over here, if the attacker is on land and the defender is on land, the defender is going to get 1 special dice, and this special dice is granted each round of combat. So let me go ahead and show you a special dice. Special dice has a couple different sides. It has this side with this icon, that's a bonus kill. It has this side with a shield icon, this is going to block an incoming kill, and it has this side with a blank, which is going to have nothing happen. So, the attacker is going to roll his dice. The defender is going to roll his dice plus a special dice. Okay, and by the way, he's going to roll this whether he has 5 units, 20 units, or 1 unit. Okay, it doesn't matter. He gets this as a guaranteed bonus. Now, the attacker got 1, 2, 3 kills. The defender got just 1, and these even together wasn't enough to do anything. So the attacker would kill everything here, assuming this happened, and the defender only killed 1 of the attacking units. But let's suppose for a moment, let's come back over here, let's suppose for a moment that this icon was rolled. Well, what this means is that 1 of the incoming kills my opponent just scored against me is canceled. In this case, the attacker had 3 kills. This would have reduced it by 1, meaning that the 3 units that Blue would have lost, he would have only lost 2 instead, and now Black would have to continue into a round of combat if he still wanted to do this. If Blue had rolled this icon, he certainly would have lost that space. Again, he's suffering 3 kills, but he would have killed another enemy unit on the grounds of rolling that die. Now, let's just do this battle a little bit differently, just to kind of show you. I just want to drive this point home. Let's make this battle a little bit bigger. Okay, so again, the attacker, now he is able to roll with 5. The defender, he's got 5. He gets his special. All right, the attacker got 1, 2, 3 kills. Okay. The defender got 1, 2, 3 kills. No matter how I organize this, it's going to be 3. Okay, he loses 3. The attacker says, I'm going to go ahead and go again. It's his prerogative. He's going to go with 3. Now, defender is only going to roll 2, but he still gets his special dice. He gets this each round of combat. All right, so you got 1 kill. The defender got 2 kills. You can see how these special dice really begin to stack up. Now, in this case, he managed to wipe everybody out. He's got to move in at least the survivors. He took that space. Another thing I want to note is when you take especially a territory from an opponent, you've got to adjust the chart. In this case, black gained a territory worth 1, but blue just lost a territory worth 1. If that territory had oil in it, black would have gained oil and blue would have lost oil. Now again, these changes are only felt during the upcoming round's mobilization phase. So it's not as if he's immediately going to lose oil from the deck, but next round, assuming he doesn't recover oil from some other place, he will have less turns in that round. Okay, so now we've gone over land to land. Let me go ahead and show you some of the other situations really fast. So here, what if we have a battle where the attacker is on the sea going to land? Well, it looks like the defender is going to get 2 special dice. So let's see what that looks like. Black's turn came up. Black performs a turn. Black says, I'm going to attack from this space to this space. Well, he's going to roll his 5. The defender's only going to roll 3, but catch this. He gets 2 special dice every single round of combat. And this is really going to begin to add up because he has a 1/3 chance for each of these dice to do something. And so regardless of how many kills are scored here, assuming this battle goes into another round of combat, even if he's reduced to 1 unit, he's going to get 2 special dice every round of combat. Conversely, let's go ahead and look at this situation. Suppose that an attacker is on land attacking to sea. What happens there? Well, the defender gets 1 special dice. So, red's turn. Red says, you know what, I'm going to deal with this threat right here. From land, I'm going to attack a sea zone. Well, in this case, just like when it's land to land, the defender would get 1 special dice every round of combat. The only situation where the defender gets no special dice is where attacker and defender are both on sea zones. Okay, so here's a question. If I control multiple factions, how can my own factions interact with each other? So for instance, let's look at this. Player 2 controls green, black, and yellow. Could he, for instance, have yellow move into one of black's spaces? Or could he have, if he really wanted to, green attack yellow for some reason? Well, the answer to both those questions is no, he can't. So the question is there any way for his factions to interact with each other on the board? Well, there is. There is another action that they can perform called the annex action. We haven't gone over this one yet. Here's how that works. In this situation, black would really like this space. Now, the player who controls black controls yellow as well. And so he's kind of in a bind here. How is he going to take this space from yellow? He can't attack him and he can't move into that space. What can he do? Well, he can perform the annex action. Here's how it works. If black simply moves in more units into this space than are there, he can just simply take this space, but at the cost of yellow having control of it. So yellow's unit would be removed from that space. There's no battle, there's no contest, nothing like that. Black simply takes control of it. However, we still have to adjust the chart because of the change of hands. So black would move up, that space was worth 1. Yellow would move down 1. Black actually just completed a sphere by doing that. Black gained an oil by doing that, and yellow lost an oil by doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about special cards. So let's see. Black's turn card was flipped. Black gets to take a turn. On black's turn, he decides, I'm going to move units from this space to this space. Now, this space contains a compass icon, and we haven't gone over this yet, but this is how you get special cards. So he took over the space. Whenever you take over any space in this game that has a compass icon on it, by any means other than by annexing, you get to draw a special card. So Black is going to draw this special card. Now, what's interesting is that it's really not black who draws this, it's the faction's owner. So, if I'm player 2, I get to draw this card. And whenever this card's conditions are met, I could play this on behalf of any of my factions. This is one of the only things that your factions share with each other. So, for instance, this card has conditions. Play this card on your turn. Count the number of capital cities you control. Place that many units on any territory you presently control. So, Black just drew this card. Now you have a little bit of wiggle room with what your turn is. You can play a card before you do something, after you do something on your turn. Black could play this card right now if he wanted to. Maybe he decides, I'm going to play this card, it's a good card. So player 2 plays this card on behalf of Black whose turn it is. The U in this card becomes whichever faction's behalf you're playing it. So it's not going to be yellow and green who get the benefit. He's playing this on Black's turn, so Black is the U in that card. He gets 1 unit for every capital city he controls. 1, 2. And he places these on a territory he controls. Maybe he'll place them there. And that would be his turn. He could have held on to this card, though, and waited until maybe yellow's turn popped up, and then played this card on yellow's behalf, in which case yellow would have gotten a certain number of units. Or he could have waited until green's turn came up and played this card on green's behalf, and he would have gotten those units. So that's how cards work. Let's take another example really fast. Let's say Black attacks this space and he manages to conquer it, right? A battle happens here, casualties are lost on both sides. Now this card also had a compass icon. Because Black took over that space, its owner gets to draw a special card. And again, special cards can be played whenever they're applicable. This card says, play this card on your turn. You may perform a bonus action. Black says, well, I want to play this right now. He gets rid of the card, and he performs a bonus action. He can do a move, pass, annex, attack. Maybe he just says, you know what, I'll perform a move. Now, again, we would have had to adjust him for taking the 2, and then the second 2 he took over. You kind of get the idea of how cards work then. Now, cards have a variety of effects. Some cards are played during the mobilization phase, and they'll say that. It'll say, play this card during the mobilization phase. Or some cards are played on your opponent's turns. Or some cards let you create units or kill units or cancel turns or just do a huge variety of effects. And so cards are a pretty cool idea. Now, there's 2 other things that cards have that I want to show you. Every single card has 2 icons. It's got a little blue icon up here and a little red icon up here. And cards can basically be played in 2 different ways other than their normal effects, which is all the text down here. So let me show you what those are. The first way is a way called desperate fighting. Let's say that Black is attacking blue here. Black rolls some dice. Maybe he gets the worst roll ever, right? He gets a 1, a 3, and a 1. Not enough to make a 6. It doesn't scroll or anything. Meanwhile, his opponent scores a 6, and a 6, and a, I don't know, nothing, okay? So actually he rolled 2 here. Maybe he gets 2 nothings. Well, Black is losing 2 units here, and he really needs to win this battle. And he knows if he goes into another round, he's just rolling a single die now versus his opponent. And this battle could really go badly against him. So what you can do in any battle, you can discard any number of special cards one at a time, even after the other dice have been rolled. And for each card you discard, you get a bonus 1-time special dice that you're rolling into that situation. So Black says, I want to go ahead and discard this card. And he's really just doing a big gamble. Please give me something good. Oh, we didn't get anything. But maybe he has, who knows, maybe he has several other cards. He says, I'll get rid of this card too. And again, you can do this one at a time. I'll go ahead and roll again. Please, yes, I got the kill I was looking for. Okay, and by the way, he could have kept on doing this. Maybe he wants some of those guys to survive. Maybe he's hoping that he'll roll a defense dice somewhere along the way, so one of his guys previously killed would have survived that battle. Either way, you can discard as many cards as you want. This is called desperate fighting. For every card you discard, you get 1 special dice, and the attacker can do this, the defender can do this, and both of them can wait to see the results of the other dice that have been rolled. Another thing that cards can do is this. You'll see that the little red icon here, it's got a little picture of a soldier and it says +1. What you can do is your turn to place units during the mobilization phase. Let's say it's Black's turn to place units. We're in the mobilization phase. That's the part of the round where we place units and we reload the deck. Black says, you know what, I'm not placing enough units this round. He can discard any number of special cards, again, not to play their effect, but for the special purpose to gain that many more units. Maybe he just gets rid of 1 card. Well, he gets to place 1 more unit. If he got rid of 3 cards, he'd be able to place 3 more units. All right, now I want to talk about what happens when 2 special cards are played into the same situation that conflict with each other, and how is that resolved? So let's say we're in this situation. Blue is attacking black. Blue is going to roll some dice. Black's going to roll some dice and some special dice. Black got 1 kill, no matter how he cuts it. Blue got 1, 2 kills. Black managed to block one of his, or 1 kill against black and 1 kill against blue. But then blue decides, I'm going to play Sniper. Now, Sniper is a card that adds kills against the opponent. All right, and if he had done that, then black would have lost yet another unit. So he would have been at a 2 loss right here. But then black says, I'm going to play Heavy Armor. Now, Heavy Armor is a card that you play when you're defending, and it cancels all the kills that were just scored against you during that round of combat. So the question is, well, whose card wins in this scenario? This one adds kills, this one cancels kills. Well, the cards resolve in the order that they were played. So in this case, blue's bonus kill would have been applied, but black's card cancels everything that had just been scored. So black actually wouldn't have lost anything. But let's imagine for a moment that the order was switched. Okay, so black was losing 1 guy previously. He then plays this. He doesn't want to lose that guy, right? He generates his guy. But then blue plays the Sniper. He plays that card that adds an extra kill. Well, that was played after the Heavy Armor. The Heavy Armor is already resolved. And so at least that 1 kill would get through. There aren't many situations where this is going to happen, but that is how you resolve them. They're just resolved in the order that they were played in. All right, I want to go ahead and talk to you now about the local resistance rule. Now, this is a rule that will maybe come into effect once or twice during an entire match, if that. It's fairly rare, but we still need to understand it. So let me go ahead and show you kind of a situation that can happen. Now, let's imagine that black was attacking blue here. And blue rolled this, that's 3 kills. Black rolled this, that's 3 kills. Now, since kills are scored simultaneously in this game, it's possible that a situation happens like this. All of the attackers are killed, and all of the defenders are killed. And the question is, what happens to this space? Is it just simply emptied out? Well, you might think that, but it's not. What happens is this. The defender gets maintained control of that space. He generates 1 guy and he maintains control of it. Now, this doesn't happen if a single round of combat elapses this way. Let me show you one more situation. Suppose that for some reason black decides this first round of combat he's only going to attack with 4. The defender, he's going to roll 4. And black had the greatest roll ever with 4 guys, right? He gets 4 kills. They get 4 kills, and all these guys are wiped out. The question is, would the local resistance rule happen in this situation? Well, it wouldn't. If the attacker has any units in reserve who are still able to move into this space, he can still take it after the battle happens. This only happens when the attacker has no units in reserve, no one who's eligible to move in, and the defender has lost everybody. So again, this will maybe only happen once or twice in the whole game, if that, but I want you to be aware of it. Okay, so this game is going to continue to be played out over a course of rounds. And every round is going to have the mobilization phase. Again, that's where we place units and we build the turn deck, and then we'll go into the turn phase where we perform actions, attacking, moving, annexing. And this is going to continue and continue until we get to the end of the final round. And this is when we can no longer adjust the round counter anymore. So let's go ahead and talk about what happens there, how this game is won. So let's say that we were on the final round. Okay, typically when a round ends, we've been counting this countdown timer down. But here, it can't go down any further. Okay, this is the end of the final round. What happens? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to determine a winner. And the game is won by whichever faction controls the most spheres of influence. In the event of a tie, it's broken by who controls the most capital cities. So let's take a look at this. Assuming this situation is true, green has 4 spheres of influence, and he has 4 capital cities. Right now, he'd win the game. Let's imagine, though, that green didn't exist or that he just didn't have that. In this case, black and white are tied. Black has 3 spheres of influence, white does 2, but white has 5 capitals, whereas black only has 3. At that point, white would be winning the game. Let's imagine, though, they didn't exist. All right, here, yellow and red are both sharing the most spheres of influence, and they're both sharing the exact same number of capital cities. So the question is, well, what breaks their tie? Well, their tie is broken by whichever of them controls the most original capital cities. So in this case, Red right now has one original capital city under his control. He didn't manage to take over anybody else's, he just has his one. He didn't lose it. He might have lost it, but he hasn't. He's just kept this one. Meanwhile, Yellow, over the course of this game, not only managed to keep his original capital, but over the course, he managed to take over another faction's original capital city. So now he has two of these. Well, because of that, he breaks the tie. And so he would have won. So the tie goes most spheres. If there's still a tie, it goes most capital cities. If there's still a tie, it goes most original capital cities. And if there's still a tie, the game goes into a bonus round. And what would happen would be a normal round is played out just like any other. The decks are built, units are placed, except that each faction who is in first place gets to place 3 additional units. At the end of that round, the winner will be determined the same way we determined the winner just now. Whoever has the most spheres, then most capitals, then most original capitals. I want to make one final comment about winning the game. Suppose that you're playing a game like this, right, where each player controls multiple factions. Well, you do not combine scores for your factions. It's not a cumulative, I have 2 spheres with this one, and I have 3 spheres with that one, so I have 5 spheres. No, you win the game with a single one of your factions. So as the game progresses, typically players begin to choose, like, all right, I'm going to focus on this team, the other team is going to run sabotage for them or something. So just keep that in mind. If the only faction that you're tying with for first place is your own faction, however, you don't need to break any further ties. You simply, as the player, win. Finally, if you have any further questions, please just refer to the rulebook. There's a lot of pictures in here, a lot of examples. And if there's something that you find that isn't covered in here, refer to this link right here. We have a frequently asked questions section that'll cover a wide variety of bizarre situations that might happen. Well, I hope you enjoy, and thank you for purchasing Spheres of Influence.